All right, we are live on the platforms we're live on, and soon to be live on the platforms we are not yet live on. When I click the buttons, there we go. We should be live to Instagram now, as well as X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and also Rockfin. Okay. A passenger jet, an Army helicopter collision, and health and human shenanigans is what we're going to talk about this evening. This is a propaganda report. I am Brad Binkley. It's 1:40-ish on the East Coast and 10:45 on the West Coast, and news is still currently breaking about this plane helicopter midair collision with it was an Army helicopter that happened in D.C. over the Potomac last night around 9 p.m. that I'm sure most of you have. What's up, Forrest Mommy? Have seen by now. But since the story is still currently developing, here is a summary of what I have learned so far, which I'm sure I could have missed some things. But nevertheless, we got to start somewhere. A commercial airplane, American Airlines Flight 5342 with 60 passengers on board, collided with Sikorsky UH-60 Black Hawk VIP transport Army helicopter, which had 3 on board on approach to Reagan National Airport just over the Potomac River. This is the first commercial airplane crash in the U.S. in 16 years, since 2009. There is nighttime security camera footage, which you might have seen. I'm not going to play it. I'm sure there will be other footage, and people will dissect that footage greatly, especially in the conspiracy community, as they should. But a massive search and rescue is underway with fears that there's already fatalities that they've confirmed, they say. But the waters are very cold, and they say that people could only potentially survive 90 minutes or so before hypothermia kicks in. I don't know. That's just what they're reporting on all of that. So, even though this helicopter is known as a VIP transport helicopter, there apparently were no VIPs on it, they say. It was 3 crew members, U.S. Army soldiers, which examples of VIP, by the way, that I looked up. I don't know. So I looked some of this stuff up, these examples, because I was putting this together quickly on Perplexity. And I have to say I haven't verified that this is true. Some of it I have. I'll tell you what I've verified and what I haven't. I have not verified that this list of VIP type of passengers is true. But this is what Perplexity says. Senior military staff are often transferred on a helicopter like this. Directors of the CIA and FBI, elected officials, members of Congress, media personalities. The King of Jordan once transported on one of these helicopters. Must be a very special helicopter. But the question for me there is, if there were VIPs on board, would they tell us right away? Probably not. Maybe, probably not. I don't know. It's also not the only use of these helicopters. A training exercise could be why the helicopter could be in flight without having VIP members on. And that's what they're actually saying now. They're just reporting that this helicopter was taking part in a training exercise, which that is actually the perfect explanation to give rise to lots of conspiracy theories, which people should ask questions, because conspiracy theories sometimes are the truth. Other uses for this helicopter: search and rescue, military transport, electronic warfare, jamming, drones, but it is jamming of other crafts and radars and stuff like that. MEDEVAC, I think that's a medical use of it during a conflict, probably. Aerial firefighting, fire suppression, armed escort, and border patrol. So the border patrol use of these Black Hawk military helicopters I thought was interesting. Well, I thought the electronic warfare one was the most interesting. But I could see the media, until there's answers provided about what happened, I could see them speculating about the possibility that the Trump administration, in their effort to round up all the immigrants and illegals and put them in Guantanamo Bay, they use this military helicopter in an out of the ordinary way to try and spotlight and track all the illegals in the D.C. area, causing this crash. I don't think that happened, just for the record. But I'm just wondering if some of the media will speculate in that direction. It's always fun to see where their fantasy stories will go. I looked this up. I was trying to find it, and I asked a question on X, which I don't usually ask questions like this on X, because when I see other people ask questions that they could very easily just search themselves, I'm like, well, why don't you just search that? You're engagement farming. I see. I wasn't actually engagement farming. I had searched for a little while to try and find if this had ever happened before in the U.S. If there had ever been a commercial passenger airplane flight have a mid-air collision with a helicopter. And so far, the answer seems to be no, that this has never actually happened before in America. In fact, based on my research so far, this has only happened one other time ever. That doesn't seem like it could be true. And I haven't had a ton of time to research it, but that's all I can find so far. There have been collisions between helicopters, mid-air collisions, obviously, because what other kind of collision is there? Every air collision is mid-air. It's not lower air and higher air collision. Obviously mid-air. Between private planes and helicopters and helicopters and helicopters. The only other example of a passenger jet colliding with a helicopter mid-air prior to this was in Syria in 2012. Which in that instance, it was a Syrian Air Flight 501, which was an Airbus carrying 200 passengers. This was during wartime over there. When is it not wartime over there? I guess I would say there. But it collided midair with a military helicopter near Damascus. The helicopter's rotor got stuck in the tail of the plane. And everybody, it was 3 people on that helicopter as well. The helicopter crashed. They all died. But the plane landed safely, and all of the passengers on board were unharmed. Which that's interesting to me, because one of the things that came to mind initially was, and I don't know anything about this, so this is why I'm putting the question out there. Would a helicopter, in a typical situation, crashing into a plane, would it be strong enough to cause that plane to crash and killing everybody on board? I'm sure the circumstances are different based on where it is. The plane in Syria was leaving, and the plane here was landing. I remember hearing a while ago that the most dangerous times, like if a plane is going to crash, apparently it's like either going to happen right as it's taking off or landing. I don't know if that's true, but that sucks. Because you don't really think about it that way. When you think about a plane crash, you think you're just flying midair because that's what the movies show and something happens. But from what they say, not the trans, but the people of knowledge, whoever they are, that the highest percentage of crashes, when they do occur, happen during takeoff and landing. I guess those are the most difficult parts. Like I said, I don't know a lot about this subject, so I could be wrong on some of this. But I am curious as to why the circumstances here were different than there. And maybe the determining factor is the fact that they were taking off and this one was landing. And I don't know what time of day that one was. This was obviously at night. What's up, Nate? What's up, Stella? What's up, Sonia? Hope all is well with you as well. Thanks for hanging out so late at night, Stella. What is it? You're in Australia. It's 12 hours. Is that right? You're 12 or 13 hours up. So it's middle of the day for you. To thank you for hanging out midday. The obvious conspiracy questions that are going to arise, and they should arise. we should reward people for asking conspiracy-like questions. And I didn't even wear this shirt that says conspiracy theorist on it for this show. I just needed a clean shirt to wear. I do like it. Who was on the helicopter? Like I said, would they even tell us if a VIP was on it? Not immediately, they would. They would not. Was it drone UAP related? That's obviously going to be a question that comes up. The Reagan Airport actually was shut down in 2022 because of drones over it. With all the drone talk, especially yesterday, saying the drones are nothing, they're FAA, which I believed a lot of that answer they gave about what the drones were yesterday. I just also believe that to be a very incomplete answer. Maybe we'll talk about that later. Was it some sort of attack that caused it? After kind of speculating myself, I said, what does this AI say when asked the question, what conspiracy theories might emerge from this incident? And most of them were really stupid, but one that I found to be very interesting. This is perplexity. They said that a conspiracy question that could emerge from this situation is that possibly this collision was caused by time traveler intervention. It says some might propose that the incident was caused by a time traveler attempting to change historical events. Marty McFly, perhaps. Or remember that guy, the lawyer who ran for president? I can't remember his name. He used to be on Coast to Coast all the time. He ran for president in 2016. And I think also a few elections before that. Who his thing was he would go on Coast to Coast and he would talk about how he met Obama on Mars like 30 years ago as a kid, which I hope is true. I really hope that's true. Can't corroborate it, but I do hope it's true. Another conspiracy-related angle here is going to be the fact that this plane was approaching runway 33 at Reagan National Airport. Yeah, right, exactly, Stella. Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, totally. Too soon? Is it too? Oh, Kobe. Forrest Mommy says Kobe. Yeah. Yeah, Kobe. Kobe time traveled. Let's see. Landing is higher? What do you mean it's higher, Stella? When you say landing, like you have to get higher, or it's you're approaching at a higher angle or something? I don't know anything about planes. I don't like flying. I've never liked flying. I used to do it all the time as a kid. And I have had tubes in my ears as a kid. And so when I would fly, it would put pressure on them. And a number of times I ended up in the emergency room because of what it did to my ears, which is one of the reasons I don't like flying. Higher risk, Stella says. Okay. Landing is higher risk. Which totally sucks. Like, you don't think about that as a passenger, you know. You're flying, you're doing whatever, watching your movie, and, you know, sitting next to a 300-pound person taking up two seats that was not able to, you know, suing somebody because she couldn't get into a lift. She's a rapper, probably. And you're like, oh, look, we're starting to go down, and I can see what looks like little Christmas villages as we approach. And you think that there's a sense of feeling safe. Oh, we're here. I mean, that's how I always felt when you start to go down. You see, it's like all the dangerous part is over, but actually the dangerous part is just beginning. And who knows? Like, I don't know. So, obviously, we need more AI control in planes. Give AI, the Cybertruck of airplanes is a solution, obviously. In fact, I was reading about new AI solutions, because that's one thing you look to as a conspiracy theorist anytime. Never let a good crisis go to waste. That doesn't mean that they're all artificial. It just means that even if artificial or natural, the crisis will never go to waste. And you could even hear that in the narrative on CNN and other networks where they're like, well, there's going to be these big changes. This has never happened before, actually, but we've been warning about it, so big changes are coming. Maybe big changes need to come. I don't know. But AI-powered decision support systems integrated into air traffic control and your AI co-pilot. Bing unleashed. They announced this thing a couple of years ago when the whole AI thing started, where it's like your Bing AI co-pilot who will do everything for you. Apparently, there is an AI co-pilot that they are integrating into aviation, and this is from August of 2024. What is this? Capitology blog? I don't know what this blog is. So take this for what you will. Capital Technology University. What is that? Build, learn, succeed. Hold on. Capital. It's just a weird name. Capital Technology University. How long is this thing? I just want to make sure this isn't a completely ridiculous thing I'm looking at here. Okay, so this thing's actually been around for a long time. It might be an indoctrination institute, but I just want to see what exactly I was showing you guys here. Okay, it says here, AI in aviation, how an AI co-pilot improves flight safety. August 15, 2024. With growing air traffic, increasing demands on pilots, and the ever-present issue of human error, fuck stupid humans. The commercial aviation industry's pursuit of enhanced aviation safety remains an upward battle, especially in the post-COVID time. Of course, in the post-COVID times where everything's more difficult, and Walmart's all closed at 11 p.m. Why can't I go to Walmart at 2 a.m. and see all the stoned crazy people anymore? Nevertheless, it continues. It says, now the emergence of artificial intelligence technology, like that being used with MIT's Air Guardian AI Copilot, ushers in a new era of enhanced safety methods with the potential to revolutionize how pilots safely navigate the skies for years to come. And it goes on. I haven't read all of this. It says a key advantage is its adaptability. Unlike traditional autopilot systems that follow a rigid set of parameters, the Air Guardian, what a name, the Air Guardian, can adjust its decisions based on specific situational demands. Our use of liquid neural networks, it's weird, provides a dynamic, adaptive approach, ensuring that the AI doesn't merely replace human judgment, of course, because we're stupid. You got to do better than us, but complements our stupidity, leading to enhanced safety and collaboration in the skies. According to an MIT researcher who named Raman Hassani, probably from India, Vivek. This adaptability fosters a more responsive symbiosis with the pilot. So it just so it's like in Star Trek where it goes inside of you. It's like a weird leech inside of you that it's two people. Ultimately, the collaboration of human expertise and AI-powered intelligence aims to augment a pilot's ability to navigate complex mid-flight situations and improve safety. Air Guardian represents a significant leap forward in human-centric AI, where the need for human judgment remains relevant. Where it remains relevant. It remains relevant, unfortunately. We want to get to a day where human judgment is completely irrelevant. Because then, what a burden off of all of our shoulders if our judgment is completely irrelevant. That's what really causes so much emotional stress and problems is our judgment. One day, we can offload all that to our AI guardian rather than just being replaced entirely. They have to say that. So they have to say that part about where human judgment remains relevant rather than just being replaced entirely. The fact that they wrote that sentence shows that they actually think that they would like to replace human judgment. Because you don't write something and then include that. Because this person wrote this, somebody read it, and they said you need to not sound so cold and like a transhumanist. And they went, oh, okay, the AI Guardian represents a significant leap where human judgment remains relevant, all right? We're not replacing it. You don't include that unless you intend to replace it. What's up, Portela? 9/11, 2000, Black Hawk Down. Oh, Black Hawk Down movie. Yeah, 2021. Interesting. Human era. Yeah. Runway 33. By the way, I know I joke about a lot of things, and maybe it's too soon, but anybody whose family was on that plane or on the helicopter or whatever, and setting aside any conspiratorial speculation, pray for them. Like, what an awful thing to have happen. What a terrible, terrible thing. The news can be so ridiculous that it's so easy to mock and sometimes be disconnected from the fact that there are people involved in things that happen who, there's government officials and whatnot who we might not like, we might think are sociopaths, psychopaths, but there's actually human beings involved who didn't deserve to have a tragedy, thrust into their lives. And for those people, I'm very sorry they're going through such a situation here or anywhere in the world, because tragedy happens all the life is suffering. Not that I think that's a motto anybody should take. I don't think anybody should wake up every morning and go, all right, life is suffering. What are we going to do today? Because you're not going to do much if that's your motto. Life is an opportunity that suffering is involved, and we don't really know what happens afterwards. Whatever. But suffering comes with it, and it sucks. And I'm sorry for those experiencing it right now in any capacity. Moving on. Forest Mommy says, I know I joke about a lot of things, and I will continue to joke about a lot. I completely agree. I don't think anything's off limits. Russell Brand, he gets a lot of shit now because people don't believe that he's actually a Reformed Christian. But you might not remember that Russell Brand kind of came onto the scene right after 9/11. He was presenting or hosting for some award show or something. And it might have been, I think it was a day after 9/11. And I think he came out dressed as Osama bin Laden. Something. He came out making a very too soon joke that in retrospect, it's like, you got some balls to do that. So I think we have to joke about it. I make fun of Scott Adams a lot. I predicted all the predictions, which I actually like Scott Adams a lot. I think he's funny, and I think he's smart. I think sometimes he'll be like, "Oh, am I the first person to predict this thing that people have actually been pointing out for like 15 years?" No, it's like, no, you're not. You're not even close to the first. But I'm glad that you are now. What did he say? He said something the other day that made me think. No, he was talking about how he goes, I give all of you permission. If I die masturbating or some weird way, if my death is funny, I give all of you permission to make fun of it. Talking about too soon stuff. I thought that was very funny. He was like, I don't care, make fun of it, please, because he was making fun of something that happened. So I can respect that position. Same with me. Hopefully I'd like to be around, for another 200, 300 years. But by all means, I don't care. Make fun of me if something odd happens. I don't want to be on the Darwin's list or whatever that thing is. But if I am, make fun of me. Nevertheless, let's continue. Is that all? Yes, that's all. Here, let's watch a little bit of the live coverage just to see if there's anything new. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, well, that didn't work. Okay, obviously. Let's see if we can refresh that. I guess there's not any live coverage that we can... This is a bootleg website, by the way, so that's why it does this.
That it's hard to even make out the pieces of the aircraft. It is broken into pieces in the water, the helicopter upside down and bobbing up and down, making things even more difficult for
bobbing up and down.
Teams that are trying to access those spaces. But it feels at this point, despite the effort we have seen from first responders.
There was a guy that CNN interviewed right after it happened earlier who he said that he saw something flash in the air, but then he heard nothing and he looked over and he saw nothing. Like he saw a brief flash while he was driving, but then kind of like looked, saw and heard nothing. It was one of those firsthand, they say firsthand anyway. He was driving on a nearby highway, reactions to it or witnesses that they might scrub later because it's like, wait a minute, why didn't this guy see or hear anything? Why is it contradicting it? This is also, you can get a lot of people to call in to CNN and other networks right after stuff like this happens, claiming they were eyewitnesses, and they don't really vet them. So that's when you can get a lot of people scamming them because they just want, they want to be the first ones to have the eyewitnesses. So you don't really know how well the people that you're hearing from are vetted.
Locate loved ones who may have unfortunately been on this flight?
Well, we know that there has been some of that here at the airport. I can tell you that we are situated in Terminal 1. There are 2 terminals here at DCA, and we were told at that press conference that there have been family members of the likely victims in this crash who are here at the airport, who came here to pick up loved ones, and they're tonight they have been with counselors and officials in an airport lounge who are trying to work with them through this and help them get information.
Counselors, I mean, that's what you really want a counselor in this situation. You have a family member on either this helicopter or this plane, and you're trying to find out more information. Is there a possibility they're still alive? And they say, here's our counselor to help. Get the counselor out of the situation for now. Another question, by the way, not just who was on the helicopter, potentially, who was on the plane?
So many of these press conferences, you can sort of read the room and read the mood. And while officials wouldn't give any sort of official information on the recovery and any potential survivors or the fatality count, you could just tell that it was not good and that, barring a miracle, they were looking at, potentially the worst disaster here in Washington in decades.
Since Joe Biden.
Decades. And, even when you look across the United States, accidents like this are incredibly rare. You have to go back almost 16 years to even find anything similar. But to have a collision
but it wasn't
like
similar.
This between a Black Hawk helicopter and a passenger plane like this, incredibly devastating.
No, it wasn't similar, the crash 16 years ago. As far as I can tell, and again, I don't know for sure, this has never happened in America. And seemingly has only happened one other time anywhere. That's why it raises so many questions.
Hauser, D.C. mayor as well, still describing this as a rescue operation rather than a recovery operation. Look, it is a grim distinction. I am not making any light of that. But where or when do you make that distinction at this point?
Well, investigators will find out exactly at what point is the accident survivable had you survived the initial impact. So at this point, my experience in that goes way back to 1982, and that was the Potomac crash over the 14th Street Bridge. At that point, there were 4 survivors in the Air Florida accident, Flight 90, at that time. And those 4 survivors, though, were brought out of the river, and that was also in January. It was January 13th. And during that time, the 4 survivors were brought out by bystanders who jumped into the river, tied ropes onto themselves, went out there, and 2 fatally that tried to make that rescue died in that attempt.
That's another interesting thing to me, anyway. If they were they were landing, how close were they to the water? I heard something earlier that said that the water was like a frozen sheet of ice. What is the crash? I know people survive airplane crashes sometimes because of the circumstances happen to, I guess, be perfect for someone to get lucky enough to survive, I guess. I wonder if this plane being closer, like on the descent, increases the likelihood that maybe they survive and they're over water. Because to me, if it went into water, it would seem, and again, I don't know anything about this, but it would seem that there might be people who are able to swim somewhere to shore. And by the time that they have all these rescue people come there, I would think anybody who was still alert wouldn't just be floating in the water, that they probably would have swam to the shore, the nearest shore, and would be somewhere on the ground. But again, I really don't know what I'm talking about in this situation.
And trying to look for survivors. Now, if you also look, they started putting floodlights on top of the water. I hate to be too morose about this, but the main reason that you do that at that point is to look for anything that's surfacing. So if there are loose bodies that were not still contained in the aircraft, those bodies would float up to the top, and that's how they would find them most likely. So that's typically what we'll do in a rescue operation that's turning into a recovery operation, is start looking for anything floating, any debris that's floating on the top, and then investigate that to see if it might be one of the
What was the
souls that were on board.
training exercise the helicopter was involved in?
David, look, I
What was its
think
purpose?
you know the operations well in regards to the relationship between the air traffic control tower, the pilot, and perhaps a military vehicle or military helicopter, and a passenger commercial.
I could totally see them trying to replace air traffic control with Chat GTP or GPT, whatever it is, or whatever.
May have gone wrong. I mean, what is the communication sort of structure in a situation like that when you have a plane coming in to land and perhaps another helicopter flying in a either similar or nearby path?
There are so many safety vulnerabilities. You know, I've done a lot of aircraft accidents, investigated them, and I've never seen one that had one singular cause. It's a culmination. It's a disastrous combination of these failures, the safety system failures, and that's what we have here are multiple failures, one of them which could very well be the communications. There are different frequencies between the military. They operate on communications with the military at one frequency, and then they operate at the airport communications commercially with a different frequency. So they're not directly connected to each other. They're not calling each other saying, hey, I have
Different
you in sight,
communication
or anything like that, like you would in visual rules. At night, that's one of the problems that I see in it. The other thing is that you can over rely on the TCAS system, the traffic control that allows you to know whether there's an aircraft coming at you or not. So that air traffic control system, the TCAS, will warn you if there's aircraft approaching at you. The faulty part of that is the fact that if that aircraft isn't approaching you, it only looks forward. So if this airplane was coming to the north and turning left, if the airplane was doing that and the helicopter is coming the opposite way, if it's to the side of the airplane, which it appears to me that is what happened, the TCAS would not have given a warning to the pilot. So that's two of the vulnerabilities. The other vulnerability that when I was based in Washington, D.C. in the FAA headquarters for many years, and I would fly mostly at night doing surveillance. I sit in the cockpit in the jump seat and watch these flights go in and out, watch the pilots, how they act. That was part of my job as a safety inspector. So literally hundreds of flights in and out of DCA at night, going over that black piece of water at the bottom, and it literally is like turning off all the lights. You cannot see anything out there. There's a light here, a light there. They don't mean anything to you. So you really have to pay attention to exactly where you're going. And if that light from the helicopter wasn't present, which it wouldn't have been if he was turning away from it, they would have had no clue what was coming.
So he's talking from the perspective of the plane. My question is, what about the perspective of the helicopter, which was a military helicopter? That's one of its primary purposes was VIP transport, which you would think in that situation, from what I learned researching, transports members of Congress, high-ranking elected officials, the King of Jordan, the head of the CIA and the FBI. You would think that would have the most advanced technology, that it would be most equipped to recognize when something else is around it. I'm wondering how the helicopter didn't see the plane. Not the plane not seeing the helicopter. because it's not a car. You can't just look out the window. Oh, there it is. Roll down the window. Let me make sure, rub the frost off, turn on the wipers. I can't see. I need to look left and right before landing. That's not how planes work, but helicopters, I mean, they're not moving as fast as planes, are they? I don't know. I've never ridden in a helicopter. It just seems like the questions would be directed at why didn't the helicopter see what was going on? It was the one involved in a military training operation. What were they training for? Wouldn't they be even on extra high alert in the D.C. area where there is such air traffic, especially because they were on a training operation? Something doesn't add up here.
The sorrow of having lost a loved one, that's the number one thing that any investigator in charge, the NTSB, the FAA, anyone on site is going to be addressing that first. Once those people are handled and dealt with, and you're comfortable.
Stella says replace with C-3PO. Probably a better pilot.
And have a place to grieve with that. And the NTSB has done great things with trying to give a family grieving center and those sorts of things at the accident sites. So that's been much better than it has been ever before. So that's going on now. The next thing you do after you...
Why are they talking about the grieving center they have for the people on the news? I've never been in that situation, losing somebody suddenly like that. I've lost both my parents, my uncle, my aunt, but not in such a sudden fashion as a tragedy like this. But I just don't think that if I were in that situation, that a grieving center and some counselor being pushed at me is something, I think that would really piss me off. Maybe I'm different than most people, but that's it just seems like, get away from me.
Go team at the NTSB is rarely deployed in the United States. It's been 15 or 16 years since we've had anything to do here in the United States. So the GO team is put together. They're out there. They bring in experts. You have experts from air traffic control. You have experts from the manufacturers of the airplanes, the military experts. It's a very, very...
With the people who they lost family members here or friends, loved ones in any capacity, they probably want to know what the hell happened. And if something happened that they're not telling us, which usually is the case at least a little bit, then my guess is those counselors would probably try to direct their focus away from trying to find out what happened. It'd probably be something like, what happened doesn't matter now. It's happened. Let's focus on your grieving process. I'm just speculating. I don't know. Never been in a situation like this. But if something other than what we're told happened, there's the image on screen of the collision, they say. Of course, with this video that we watch, I'm sure a lot of people point this out. You don't really know what you're looking at. It's in the distance. It's a security camera. I'm sure that there will be other videos that emerge, or maybe there won't be. You would think there would be other videos that emerge. But in this here, it's off in the distance. It's an explosion. The only thing that I noticed, I had to watch it again, because what I noticed was a plane taking off. That's what I was following. I was expecting that to be the collision when I first watched it. And then in the background, I saw the explosion kind of in the lower right corner. And I went back and watched it, and I was looking for the two crafts, the plane and the helicopter, before it, which I never saw. Maybe I haven't watched it close enough, but all I saw was the explosion. The only craft I saw initially, like I said, I haven't watched this a ton. I've watched it like 5 times, was the one taking off that was not involved in it.
Helicopter from the 12th Aviation Battalion that's based at Fort Belvoir, Davison Army Airfield, which is south of Washington near Mount Vernon. And these aircraft provide, among other things, VIP transport for Army leadership, as well as members of the Joint Staff and other entities in and around the DC area. So the Pentagon is an area where they would fly normally, and they often use the rivers like the Potomac River, the Anacostia River, and some of the other bodies of water around here as ways to navigate. They also use some of the highways. There's an interstate highway that travels, as you know, south of DC, Interstate 395, that goes right by the Pentagon. And these helicopters will often use Interstate 395 as a way to navigate not only above traffic, but as a means to get from point A to point B. So there's a lot of training that goes on for these pilots. It's a very congested air environment. There also, of course, are other types of helicopters like Marine One that are used. They're a different type of helicopter from the Black Hawk, but have a similar function. And of course, Marine One is the helicopter that transports the president.
Black Hawk that collided with the jet was on a training flight.
And so those are some of the things, some of the aircraft that you see around here, and it's really part of a very dynamic environment. You mentioned the police helicopters, plus some other aviation assets, including press helicopters in some cases. So there's a lot going on here, and it's a very complex environment. And accidents like this, as David mentioned in your previous conversation, it's one that they haven't happened more frequently.
And, and just for our viewers' perspective, this was the U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter was on a training flight at the time of the incident. A crew of 3 people, as we understand, not carrying any senior military officials, but a crew of 3 nonetheless, as a source tells CNN. But training flight. So what sort of scenarios are you training for when you have a crew on a training flight? What are you training them for, especially in DC airspace?
So one of the things that they're training for, Omar, is that very congested air environment that I spoke about. There are different types of familiarizations that take place for pilots and other crew members on these helicopters. You will often see them flying in areas that are just outside of the city. That's to get familiar with those particular areas. They will train not only to learn the geography, but also to learn the flight patterns. They will train to learn how the commercial aviation operates in this area. You've got 2 major airports right around DC, Reagan National being one of them, the other one being Dulles, and then up north you have Baltimore Washington International. So there's a lot of air traffic that way.
They do training simulate. They've been promoting VR so they don't have to do this. Are they lying about that?
With night vision goggles, and that's the kind of thing that they do, for example. Plus, they also use instruments of various types to do that. So that's the kind of thing that they train for. A lot of training goes on, basically around the clock around here, so that they are not only mission ready, but potentially combat ready as well.
So combat training is what they're doing.
Retired U.S. Air Force Colonel Cedric Layton, thank you.
So this guy says, thank you. You just brought up potentially combat ready. Thank you. Goodbye. He doesn't follow up on let's talk more about the combat ready. Are they training for combat? And haven't you guys been promoting the use of virtual reality for training in such situations so you didn't have to endanger people like this? And is this the sort of risk that pilots flying in this area are made aware of? You're flying into DC. You need to be aware of the fact that there, at any point in time, might be helicopters, military helicopters flying around at night, training newbies to get better at flying in hectic environments. Literally, let's send you out there and put people in danger to train you while actual passenger jets and other things are trying to land. Are the pilots, these are all questions that should have been asked there that were not asked. I understand that there needs to be training that happens in an environment that somebody will have to operate in, especially helicopter flight. Nevertheless, is live right around a busy time at the DC, which is always busy, is that the best environment to do this? That training to be able to pilot a helicopter in this situation, to me, is not a believable explanation for this.
As we look over my right shoulder here, we see Reagan International Airport with those first responder lights. We see the U.S. Capitol in the distance, the Washington Monument right there, and the scene of multiple people in the wall.
What word spell says that apparently pre-written articles in regard to the crash there was pre-written articles by CNN and New York Times, you're saying? Where did you get the info that there were pre-written articles? I'm guessing somebody screenshotted something, or is it on the Wayback Machine? Screenshots I'm always a little wary of because people manipulate that for engagement, but it's quite possible. Stella says, want to crack jokes but feel wrong. I agree. I completely agree. And then Stella says, it's my cynical speculation. Yeah, me too. This is a story, and all stories that are breaking, the expectation should never be that they're going to be 100% perfect in telling us things. However, I think the expectation should also be that we don't reward them for trying to act like they know everything. I would prefer them to be like, look, we don't really know. And we have these experts coming on just because they know more about aviation than us. But honestly, this could be nothing in this situation. They should be asking better questions. And this is in the middle of the night for CNN, 2:30 in the morning, so they have the B team in.
These images coming into CNN live right now.
Not that the A team would ask. The A team would be like, how did Trump's deportation policy cause this helicopter to crash into this passenger flight, killing 63 civilians and 3 military? Hitler, Trump killed. I mean, that's how the A team.
After a big meal.
All right, that's enough of that. We could do that all night. Okay, I wasn't going to talk about that long, but that happened right before the show started. It looks like screenshots. So, yeah, if you have a link, what word spell, I'd like to see it. Put that link in the comments if you would. I'll check it out. I'm not saying that it's not possible that they had pre-written stories about this. I've just X. I don't trust X news any more than I trust any other news, even though I would say that I agree with a lot of it. Not completely, but it leans more a way that I lean, but I also am highly distrusting of it because there's a lot of grifting going on in there. Lots and lots of grifting going on in there. And I'm in a place where I'm like, I see all these grifters who post things that are clearly trying to appeal to audiences that probably listen to this show and to me because of the sentiment, but I can tell how surface and BS it is. And some of them I've actually met personally, and I know that they're grifters. But I can't say that because people will get mad at me because they like them. And you can't be the first one to point out the pathological liar because people will then turn on you. Does it let you? What account is posting it? Do you know the name, the handle of the account? It could be BS. Maybe not. Who knows? I don't know. I just want to check it out. Yeah, if you have the handle of the X account, drop that in there. I'll check that out. Moving on, though. I think that's all I wanted to cover on all that. Yeah. So, concerned citizen. That's the account. Let me look at that real quick. Then we'll move on for a little bit more before cash. God. So it's very funny. So I just pulled up X over here, and the first tweet that I saw, which is from earlier today, was Tripoli posting that rapper who weighs 500 pounds. With Tripoli saying that fupa is wild. He's correct. That is it's one of the wildest fupas I've ever seen. And I wish I could erase from my memory. Concerned citizen. Yeah, all right. I think I've seen concerned citizen before. Let me see. Concerned citizen. Spell it correctly. All right, let's see what they got. All right. Give me 1 second here to scroll through this. What, twerking from that rapper. Okay. I see the post you're talking about. Let me see if I can put it on the screen. Here we go. Let me share that with you guys. All right, there's concerned citizen. It's a little bit bigger. CNN allegedly had pre-written articles about the Washington crash hours before the event, and lots of people have the receipts. And here are the receipts that they say that they're sharing. What is that? I can't see that very well. Hold on. I'm going to move that to another screen. I can't see it on my faraway screen. A 12-minute. So FAA issues ground stop at National after plane crash 7 hours ago. All right, so these images that this person is showing is not evidence of what they're claiming. He highlights 7 hours ago a couple of times, but you don't know when that was screenshotted, and you don't know what time zone this person's in. And also, the way Google works now, which I've learned that I used to be able to find anything on Google until after the Las Vegas shooting that they still haven't, discovered or found a motive about. It became very hard to find anything on the internet. You could even use all the modifiers, the search modifiers, to eliminate searches and recent searches, and all of the recent searches would still show up. And what would often happen is there would be something that just happened that's just a regular story, and the cache or whatever, it would show times of stuff in these searches that were off. Like so a basketball game that I just watched live, for example, I could search, and the search results would say in the search 12 hours ago, Georgia Tech lost to Notre Dame, blew a 12-point lead. And I would know because I was at the game that just happened. So while that is confusing, if any of this is timeline-wise, did appear to show. Although the way they cropped all this shit, though, it seems deceptive to me. Let me see what the other one says. Another one is a search. They're not given in the right context. I don't believe this person. So the way that this appears by concerned citizen, it appears to me like they're intentionally cropping things to create this belief. They could, if they truly believed that these articles were pre-written, they could make it very, very easy for people to understand that. But they're not. They're making it hard to understand that. They're trying to get their followers to believe based on what they asserted. So I don't believe this person, and now I actually distrust concerned citizen. They don't seem like a concerned citizen at all. They seem like a concerned content creator with the X grifting program that shares the profits of that, which it encourages people to do this. This is the problem with X. X encourages people to bullshit the hell out of people based on stuff like this. That's why I don't. That's one of the biggest flaws with X. What is all this? And then this other post that they put, you can't even. It's so small you can't even read it. None of this stuff is. It's just they circle it in red, but you don't put any comparative. Screw concerned citizen. I don't like concerned citizen. I'm not saying that it's not true. I don't mean to be a jerk. What word spell? I am so open to conspiracies, but I'm also very jaded by conspiratorial claims because I've seen people disingenuously engage in them for profit. Like I've personally met people who I learned were doing that. So that's why I'm very much my philosophy. What word spell is to question harder those who you are more likely to believe. For me, that's conspiracy theorist. Because it is those who the propagandists send to manipulate you. Not the ones you are already inclined to disbelieve, because they're not really going to get through to you as well. It's the ones you're less likely to question who are sent to be the perfect propagandists for you. Dating back 100 years, Edward Bernays, based on Freud, that is the model that they continue to use today. That is why I'm not trying to be a dick, but I don't believe anything concerned citizens said because of the way they presented that evidence. That doesn't mean it's not true, though. It just means that the evidence was not presented in a convincing way for me. I am very skeptical about regular news, alternative news, and conspiracy theories. And what I think I want for breakfast, okay? It's a very difficult decision for me just to eat breakfast every morning. Bacon, eggs, but what do? I start thinking about how friendly pigs are with dogs. I can't eat bacon again. Moving on. I just called a couple out recently, bottom feeders, Estella. Yeah, no, it's... I saw a ton of that with a Libertarian National Convention that I went to. I moderated the debate here in Georgia last year, the presidential candidates debate to pick their nominee, and then I went to the National Convention, and man, that really, it opened my eyes to how much of a target the Libertarian Party is for grifters and feds, because the Republican Democrat Party is also captured, in my opinion, but it's a little more tightly captured in that an outsider or a Fed can't as easily go in and newly capture them. It's like old capture. But the Libertarian Party, which is the third biggest party in America, has all this loose organization of people who all hate each other mostly. It's the most self-hating party you've ever seen in your life. That you can just go in and just give them what they want. And they're critical thinkers, they're very smart people, and I was actually very surprised. And maybe I would be too. I was disconnected from it because I've been for a very long time I've been like, I will never be a part of any political party, because I can't forget what Saul Alinsky, Edward Bernays, and all the propagandists always emphasize in their books, which is never buy in to the bullshit that you're propagating, because then you'll get caught up in your own lies and pulled by the emotional appeals that you're injecting into them. Always. So that's how I see all the parties, as vehicles to create an organizational weapon. That doesn't mean that the people involved in them aren't genuine, authentic, or good people or smart people. The way that I connect to that is how I am so propagandized by Georgia Tech-based basketball and football and Braves sports is my thing that I can't break free from. I'm always led to believe that they're going to be good when I know that they're not. And I say that jokingly, but also I'm being serious. It's the same type of philosophy. That, you want things to be a certain way, but there are these vulnerabilities to people recognizing the influence that a certain mass group of people can have, and these psychopaths can come in and pretend to be something they're not, either for profit or because they're feds. What's been prevalent in recent years are these, what are they called? They're called online covert employees, OCEs, which are employed by the FBI. By the way, if you're watching on Instagram, you have about 1:40 left, and then it cuts off on Instagram. It cuts off after an hour. So you can go to youtube.com/Brad Binkley or Rumble, The Prop Report, or Freedom Act Radio on X, and you can continue watching if you want. Just want to give you guys a heads up. But I forgot where I was even going. What word spells say, yeah, I'm not saying, yeah, I got you. Totally. Sonia says, I consider myself an independent libertarian. That's what I consider myself too. Yeah, I'm a libertarian, little L, not big L. I won't associate with a party. Or at least I won't join one. I definitely lean more libertarian in my views, but also it's a very manipulatable mass, just because of libertarians by their very nature are not as organizable people in a certain sense, which makes them infight, but also makes the groups within organizable by figures that come in and confidently speak to them the things that they like to hear. And they can create this illusion of authority and popularity, which social media especially in this instance, allows people to do. There are people who can just really fabricate a very large X following in a way that makes them look very, very authentic. I don't mean buying a whole bunch of followers. There's other ways that I've talked about on the show that people can develop an actual authentic following by the nature of the X policies and rules. You can change your handle and name on X and keep all of your followers. So you can pretend to be a libertarian hot slut, liberty thought. It shows your boobs all the time. You can get a bunch of fake pictures or AI pictures, and you get it wrapped around with the snake flag, the don't tread on me flag, and you can spend a year building a big following because that builds more. That's a faster way to build it. If you have very nice breasts and you show it off publicly, which you can do on X, and you wrap the don't tread on me flag around you, and then you say, I'm going to go shoot some guns today. I love free speech. You're going to build a following much faster than a dude who tries to make good libertarian points. Okay, it's simple. It's very, very obvious. And then after about a year, after building this following, you can then change your handle and your name, delete every tweet you ever made that was a fake picture of a liberty slut, and you will have the exact same target audience following that you would if you were a guy just going on to talk about libertarian issues. And then when you present your actual self and your new handle and your new name, which is completely disconnected or even discoverable based on the way that the X setup works, then nobody who follows you will know the difference. They'll think that they just, this is somebody I like that followed you a long time ago. Then you pay a micro influencer, as they call it in the literature, maybe even mid or macro at some point, to promote you as the latest voice in libertarianism or whatever the thing is. And that gives you the validity that then directs even more people there. This is a type of thing that people do on X to artificially build up their following. And then they take this following, because people see this big following on X as authority and intelligence, and they carry that to the live real events. And you have to be able to compartmentalize, be a bit of a sociopath to engage in this con. But this is why political parties attract con artists, but that is what they do. And people see them, that's that person with those hundreds of thousands of followers, without everybody knowing that it was all an artificially built up con. Except me. Me and a few others, we knew this because I pay attention to this. This is what I've been doing for a long time. Just like I did these exposés on Stacey Abrams and her background, AOC and all these other political figures and their background. When I saw people rise to big popularity in Libertarian Party or any other party or any other platform, I go, wait a minute, what's the trick? Is it legitimate? Sometimes, usually not. And I investigate what happened. And you always learn a lot about marketing, honestly. And I'm not even, you don't hate the player, hate the game, okay? Any of us could do that if we wanted to. If we wanted to, if we were okay with manipulating all of these people for profit. I'm sure people rationalize, well, I'm going to, I need to make sure I can take care of myself and my family, even though I know some of them have no family, really. It's like, you just seem like you're just a money-grubbing piece of shit to me, some of them. It's interesting because some of you actually know who I'm talking about, but you don't realize you know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to say it because I know what will happen if I do. There's a paid attack army that will come after me, and I have a much smaller presence. So I'm not going to say the name. I'm going to do the same thing I did when I was younger, and I recognized a grifter had captured one of my friends and was draining them of all of their money because it was, like his first girlfriend. Didn't believe me until he believed me. So, just be aware. People who sound the most appealing sometimes, maybe they have good intentions, but we should always treat them as though they don't. And they should have to earn our trust over and over and over and over again when it comes to the political realm, especially in modern society that is dominated by influencers on a screen. Make sure this thing's off. If your content is decent, you don't need to stoop to do titty shots. Right. But also, it's easier to do titty shots than do good content. Right? It's easier. If you can, shut it off and be okay with it, like Rachel Maddow does every day when she goes and does her show, and just blatantly manipulates and lies to her audience and convinces them they should be terrified that a Nazi is rising and is going to come round up their 75-year-old grandmas. You have to be a certain level of psychopath to do that. And that's much easier if you are that than actually providing good content and trying to, the best you can, expose the truth. Because nobody can 100%. People get it wrong all the time. I mean, and that's the base level of even the people with the best intentions are wrong. Not even infrequently. I mean, wrong quite a bit. But they're okay. They will admit that they're wrong. They won't block every single person who points it out. It's crazy. TT, I'm not going to show you my tits, TT. Look, I got good ones. They're good. I'm not going to show you my tits. Okay, these are, no, maybe. Maybe. Let me think about it, okay? Maybe I'll show you. I mean, I've worked very hard for these. You pervert. Let me see. All right. So I'll just do like one or two more things. Every now and then I'll go on a rant about that because it's out there and it's prevalent. And there's people that I know who are very good people who I know are subjected to it. I've actually seen them give money to people who I know are conning them. And I don't like that. I don't like that. I mean, the con artist is like, great work. You're obviously you're a liar, and that's how you're making a living. And the basis of that, the psychology of that, is the same psychology of how politicians do it. Because really, it's like a lower level it's a training. You're training at a lower level of politics to maybe one day be brought up to a higher level, which is what Stacey Abrams, AOC, and Obama and all those people did. They had to prove themselves as organizers who could manipulate masses of people based on this idea that they were fighting for them, who they actually were throwing under the bus. Some of them actually causing to be imprisoned because they compelled them to commit acts of violence, like Stacey Abrams did during the Rodney King riots at Spelman, whose lives potentially are ruined because of this act of violence. Meanwhile, Stacey Abrams is getting a job in the governor's office the next week. It's infuriating. But if you can turn that switch off, a great way to make a living. I'll say that. I'll show you my jump shots, definitely. I made a video. I put a video up recently, Sonia, that I finally got off the disabled list with my elbow, and I went and played again. And trying to they called me White Lightning on the court. All the brothers did after the first game. Not because I did anything good. I just brought bath salts to the game, and so they called me White Lightning. But no, I'll definitely put those up. That's what I pride myself in. They can get the Instagram thing off. They're done. Hold on one second. And then I was going to talk about Kennedy a little bit today. Maybe I'll save most of that for tomorrow. So, changing gears again. The RFK confirmation was here, which, by the way, RFK Jr. is 71 years old. I don't take testosterone. I never have. But I got to tell you, RFK Jr., he is a walking advertisement for taking testosterone as an older man. I mean, the dude's in fantastic shape for 71 years old. He needs to get Scott Adams' solution to his voice thing. But, his wife, you can see her behind him. It is funny. I just really want to see a Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry David bust into a dinner that RFK Jr. and his wife, because his wife Cheryl used to be Larry David's wife in Curb Your Enthusiasm in the early seasons. And Larry busts into the White House and there's a dinner going on with Trump and RFK. I mean, wouldn't that be a great episode of Curb? instead of the entire last season, which was about Larry giving a bottle of water to a black woman who was standing in line to vote in Georgia, which they completely misrepresented what the laws were. It would be a much better episode to bust into the White House, Larry. Nevertheless. So Kennedy was doing the hearings today to be the head of, what's it called, Health and Human Services. I'm not going to talk a lot about this, but he did say something at the beginning of this that it struck me because it's something that we all, I think, or at least most of us, that we take for granted until we can no longer take it for granted. And I'll play the clip right here. Here it is.
A healthy person has 1,000 dreams. A sick person has only one.
That's it. That's the only thing I'm going to play from you from that hearing. A healthy person has 1,000 dreams. A sick person has only one, which is to get better. And man, that is I heard that and I was like, man, that is such a powerful quote. We didn't get a lot of coverage or any coverage actually, but that right there makes you want to be healthier, in my opinion. Makes you want to take better care of yourself, get better sleep. Makes you want to keep that in mind because people who are sick or who have been struck with a rare disease that leaves them disabled or a physical condition that they never imagined they would have been until the day or the months that it happened, would tell you this, that your health is everything. None of your dreams mean anything without your health. And I know that I take it for granted all the time. You think there's more time. You never know. Nobody has planned on their schedule. Oh, a month from now is when I suddenly get sick or when I suddenly, somebody suddenly gets paralyzed or whatever. Nobody plans for that. It was a really powerful statement from him. So say what you will about him. There's a lot of other things, which maybe, honestly, maybe they should actually investigate RFK Jr. When it comes to this collision that happened in D.C. because the bombshell was released earlier today that one of his ex-wives called him a sexual deviant. So, just happened to have this collision right after that happened, right when they were getting some focus on what people were really going to be shocked about when it comes to a Kennedy, which is, infidelity. What a shocking news story. A Kennedy and infidelity. What a stupid story, obviously. What they should have been focusing on, actually, is this quote. This should have been headline on every single newspaper because, to me, it's actually the most impactful thing that you can hold in your mind. And if the news really gave a rat's ass about people, they would report on that and they would focus on, this is a very good message here. Whatever. Instead, they're like, R.F. Kennedy Jr., who's clearly ripped as a 71-year-old, is trying to destroy your health. And the rest of the hearing was basically a bunch of people saying, you didn't want the mRNA vaccine. You thought it was bad. You're terrible. And then a bunch of people who profited, to the tune of millions of dollars off of Big Pharma saying, do you promise that 4 years after you're no longer in this position, you won't profit off of Big Pharma? Was he going to be in his 80s by the time this happens? Nevertheless, it's all this stuff it's a show. It's shenanigans. And they overlook the very few moments in them that you can focus on that could actually be have a positive impact on people's lives. Because God forbid the news have any positive impact on people's lives. TT says, do you remember back in 2015 when Obama was doing all his big gun talks after Sandy Hook and the pharmaceutical industry paid shitloads to not be mentioned or invoked? I don't remember that specifically. I do remember Obama doing that, but I believe that. I read this article, TT, recently, actually earlier today, about the Super Bowl ads, $8 million to get a Super Bowl ad now because that's the one thing people can watch and it not depress them, I guess. So let's cram all the ads into that. And one of the groups that they said was going to be making a comeback because they scaled it back a little bit with the Super Bowl ads was the pharmaceutical companies. They said, look for the pharmaceutical company ads to make a big comeback during the 2025 Super Bowl. Well, thank goodness. Thank goodness for that. I wonder what celebrities they'll get to do it. I can't wait to find out. Maybe some AI. You know what they need to do? They need to do pharmaceutical ads where they just inject people. They have Fauci. How you doing? I'm going to give you. He just gives people a shot, and then they just start flying, and they have superpowers. I mean, that's real. You might as well go that far with it. You know, their dicks grow huge. It's just like an episode of Boys. Which, by the way, if you like the show and you want to help it continue existing, you can make a one-time, or even better, you can make a recurring donation at tinyurl.com/propshow. That's tinyurl.com/propshow, where you can choose how much of a monthly donation that you, or individual that you want to make. You can make $1 a month, or you can make $10,000 a month, whatever. Based on what value you get from the show, make a donation based on that. Another option, if you're an audio-only pod listener, is to join the Propaganda Report Patreon, patreon.com/propaganda report, where you will get a private RSS feed that will deliver the show directly to whatever app you listen on right when it's uploaded, and it'll be ad-free. I'll remove all the ads for non-subscribers. If you want to help out, but you don't want to do any of that, you can also just let the ads play through if you're listening on audio. Because if the ads are skipped, we don't get anything. So letting them play through also helps out the show financially, and you can help the show grow by sharing it with friends, recommending it to people who might be interested, recommending me as a follow on X until I get kicked off there, but it's at Freedom Act Radio, Brad Binkley at Freedom Act Radio, recommending me as a guest on other people's shows that you like. I'm a good guest. I'm a very good guest, okay? I don't have the burden of the 5 or 6 jobs that you're required to do when you're hosting a show and producing it at the same time, which is always a very freeing experience to me, which is always why I just kind of go a little crazy sometimes when I'm a guest. So I won't let you down if you do that. Also recommend to me anybody who you'd like for me to talk to. And the best way to get in touch with me to communicate this message is probably my DMs on X, which is at Freedom Act Radio again, or in the comment section on youtube.com/Brad Binkley, where these videos are, or on rumble.com/Prop Report, where the videos are. Rockfin, so I see those messages, but not as much as I see the other ones. The emails and propagandafight.com, I do see those, but sometimes I don't see them until weeks later because of the influx of spam that I get. So those are the easiest way to get in touch with me. Okay, I hate doing that, but I have to do that to keep the show existing. I appreciate it. TT says, I'll let your videos play on Roku when I'm not home. Thank you so much. What a great, thank you so much. I let your videos play on Roku when I'm not home. That's awesome, dude. I really appreciate that. You know, how much does YouTube take on the super chats, which is another way to support the show? I'm not sure, honestly. I have the super chats, but I haven't. I've kept all of that in YouTube. In fact, I was just recently looking at transferring it, so I don't really know what it takes. I'll look into that and find out. Around 30%. Wow. Well, that's quite a shock right there. It's like you ran a helicopter right into the profits right there, Stella. I love the idea of putting it on repeat, playing them on your Roku. I do like that idea. Okay, like a couple more quick things around here. All right, so this, and then one more thing. For this story, it's all health related. I want you guys to ask yourself, would you do what this person did? Would you accept the treatment that this person accepted for the condition that they had? Keep that in mind as we go through this story. The headline is this: Parkinson's patient feels cured with new device. That's what Muhammad Ali had, Parkinson's. I'm sure many of you are familiar or you've known somebody who has had it. It's a very debilitating condition. Terminal. I don't know how people can live for it with years, but their quality of life degrades. A man fitted with a pioneering computer-controlled brain implant to tackle his Parkinson's disease says it works so well he is sometimes able to forget he has a condition. Powerful statement or belief if true. A small computer inserted into Kevin Hill's chest, his chest wall 12 months ago, is connected to wires running into the brain, which can send electrical signals, and an update means it can now read his brain activity. So they added an update to it recently. So it's like a software update, I guess, is kind of what it sounds like. That now can read his brain signals. To me, I'm like, first reaction is, I don't know that I needed the brain reading signals unless it is actively helping my symptoms. If it was helping the symptoms before reading the brain signals, I'd be like, why are we throwing in the mind reading stuff in there? Can we just, nixay on the mind reading? But let's continue and see what it says. I'll put this up on the screen, actually, because it does show an image of some of the surgery this guy had. TT says YouTube. J-O-O, okay? YouTube. Not what you're thinking with the E and the W, okay? Okay? Can you see that? No, here it is. There's the guy. All right. I'll scroll it down when it gets to the image, the part where it shows the brain thing. Okay. The 65-year-old from Sunderland said, it has been so successful, he feels like his brain has been cured. He said, I forgot about my Parkinson for days and days and days. I don't know how advanced his was. It doesn't talk about it here. But I can only imagine it for someone who has that condition to forget for a period of a week that they had it. That's probably like a life-changing thing for them. They're not going to forget what is going on in their body and whatnot, but perhaps it's far better than the symptoms of the condition they were experiencing. The DBS, what's DBS mean again? Is that what it's called? DBS? Hold on. DBS? That's the wrong thing there. I think that's the name of the... Okay, the deep brain stimulation is what that's the name of the treatment. The deep brain stimulation... Where did that go? The deep brain stimulation involved an implant that runs deep into the brain, which, obviously by the name, to an area the size of a grain of rice. The computer in his chest is connected to two thin wires that thread up to the back of his neck. It carries the electrical messages that can manage his Parkinson's symptoms. That's interesting. Parkinson's. So there's these cells in your brain. I don't know if this is related to Parkinson's, though. I know it's related to other diseases. Yeah, so there are these Brzezinski cells in your brain, because my mom's condition dealt with this. It wasn't Parkinson's, but my mom was misdiagnosed with Parkinson's initially. There are these Brzezinski cells, that's what they're called in your brains, that are the communication system that when you have a thought, it just sends the communication to all your limbs. Just instantaneously. That if those cells are killed, then you're not a paraplegic or you're, it's not like your spinal cord has been severed. It's just that you don't have control over your limbs anymore because the communication system is gone. So in effect, for people who end up in severe conditions, it's like they're a paraplegic, except they can still feel pain. And I believe the Brzezinski cells are what is being replaced here when they talk about these electrical signals. That's interesting. I mean, this sounds like something that could have helped my mom, to be honest with you, on a first read here. When it was switched on after surgery, he said the impact was dramatic. After years of sleepless nights and being unable to manage uncontrollable shaking of his arms and leg, his tremor stopped instantly. Mr. Hill said he stared at his hand and couldn't believe what he saw. His wife burst into tears. I think that might be a bit dramatic representation of that, of him staring, and I'm sure there's a build-up, but probably. She actually probably did eventually burst into tears. He probably did too. Because that's truly, probably something they never thought they would ever see again, honestly. The life he once knew came back, meaning he was able to go to the pub and see he went to the pub to see his friends. I don't know that if you get the chest computer and the brain implant and your symptoms here go away, I don't know that you should be going to Taiwan on right after that. Maybe wait a little while before going to get hammered at the pub with the boys. The article continues. His version is called, of the deep brain stimulation, adaptive deep brain stimulation. Okay. That's good that it's adaptive. Maybe that's where the brain, reading the brain signals comes in. It's been designed to reprogram the system in real time. Okay, so that is what it is. It can also read a patient's brain signals, which doctors say should mean even better control of the symptoms. So it's like real-time updates. That's personalized medicine. Here's so this is a I'll take this off screen. I don't mean to shock you guys with it, but this is what the stitching or the scar on his brain is. This looks a little fresh. Maybe it's not a scar, but it's going to leave a scar. Yeah, there's the stitching on his brain where the brain implant went. It's not any worse than, I guess, like a hair implant, but still. But at that point, though, if you don't have control of your body, I think somebody in that situation, that's definitely something they'd be willing to sacrifice. And they don't really show the computer in his chest. They just have him opening up his shirt like he's an Instagram model here. Maybe a little less of, maybe just show the computer instead of what photographer who covered this story was like, yeah, make it sexier. Yeah, I want you to screw me with your eyes. Let's get a better photo to demonstrate the computer. How about focusing on the computer in his chest instead of this weird image, this perverted photographer used? So a guy like this, I feel very happy for a man like this, for somebody who never thought that he would be able to regain some control of his body. Now, he's going to be sent to the front lines of Ukraine or the war with China. Because I'm kidding. Would you guys do that? It's a hard thing to say, I think, if you're not in that situation. Honestly, I think most people would. I think if I didn't have control over my body, I would. I think that I would absolutely try it. Stella says it'll be great for a select few. The ones they allow will show us the carrots. Yeah. It's also interesting because any technology that gets developed, the military, the government, they're so eager about weaponizing it. I remember a few years ago playing, it's about brain-computer interfaces. The advancements that enables people that they were testing to control objects in their house and stuff. And this was a military panel discussion that I was playing. And the people on the panel were eager. They're like, yeah, but we're weaponizing it. So people, soldiers can control swarms of drones with it. They're backed in a corner. They think it. The drones come, and they just kill everybody. I'm so eager. Just let society enjoy the health benefits of it, the curing benefits of it, before you poison the idea of the technology with the weaponization that you always go to. It's like, all right, we're going to weaponize it, and we're going to have sex with it. Yeah, after it helps paralyze people, but we're screwing it, and it's killing people. It's like that's the thinking behind any new technology. You come back to me when your research has shown me how I can screw that thing and kill millions with it, or your grant gets pulled. You DEI son of a bitch. Whatever. I'm sure that's how society. I'm sure the stick was probably initially a crutch. Old man in the tribe was having a hard time walking. Oh, I carved this thing that they can use as a walking stick, what would later become a cane. And then somebody said, how can we kill people with it and shove it up my ass? Always is how it's been with humanity, in my opinion. All right. I'll save the other stories for, I guess, later tonight at this point. And we'll close out on Governor Walz. Actually, two more things. I can't. Talking about health, I cannot leave Brian Johnson out. My camera. How long has my camera been out? If my camera's been out for a while, I apologize. I didn't realize that. Hopefully the audio wasn't out, because then I just ranted to myself. But we can't talk about health without checking in on Brian Johnson on his quest for immortality. Where is that? You guys know Brian Johnson, the guy who's trying to de-age himself, and he's a new Netflix show just came out called Don't Die. There's a Don't Die app. He's doing all this weird shit all the time. Getting blood transfusions from his son, measuring the quality and length of time that him and his son have boners. Still don't know who does the quality checks on him and his son's boner. His son is like 18, 19, so he's not that much of a creep. But here is Brian Johnson. Let's see how he's doing here. Let's check in on him. From Twitter, Brian Johnson says, I am no longer injecting my son's blood. I've upgraded to something else. Total plasma exchange. Steps. Number 1, take out all blood from the body. Okay. Seems risky. Step 2, separate plasma from blood. Is there like a 3D printer for that? Can you just put it in the 3D printer? Separate plasma from blood? How does that work? Step 3, replace plasma with 5% albumin and IVIG. I don't know what those are. Then it says, here's a bag of my plasma. Who wants it? And it shows him looking like the weirdest member of New Kids on the Block, holding a bag of what he says is plasma. I don't even know how to describe what this bag of plasma. It looks like clouded urine mixed with porridge. That he's who wants it? Who wants this clouded urine looking bag of porridge? Although I'll tell you what, you'll add 15 years to your life if you can shotgun that bag, or just put a beer funnel right into that bag and let some fraternity pour. I guarantee you take that thing to a fraternity, and there will be some dude who's drunk enough to say, I'll drink his effing, give me Brian Johnson's plasma, I'll drink it, and he'll just swallow it all down. And then he will instantly look 5 years younger. Yeah, you say what you will about this guy. This guy's very weird. And this is a weird thing here. So are the charts where he shows how long his kid had a boner last night, and his kid had a boner for 2 minutes longer. What a disappointment. And the quality of his boner versus the quality of his kid's boner. That's what you do after breakfast in the Johnson family, or after dinner. You don't play board games, watch a movie together, go for a walk. You measure the quality of every boner in the house. You quality test it. Which is, boner quality tester will be Joe Biden's new job. Him and Kamala Harris will be knocking on your door soon. His kid's like 20. It's weird, right? But in his defense, he's experimenting on himself. And at least he's testing all this shit out on himself instead of using the public around the world as guinea pigs to experiment with an untested, unproven mRNA vaccine like they did in 2020. So he's a weirdo, but at least he's not imposing this shit on the planet like the government did with the mRNA vaccines. Poor man's adrenochrome. Yeah, they won't even drink this shit in Hollywood. Tom Hanks pisses porridge-colored urine all over that bag of porridge-colored looking urine when he sees it. TT says, look like they get the fat out of a dumpster on Fight Club. Yeah, right. It's kind of like bacon grease that is a little off. It's not the right color. It's like, what kind of grease came off that bacon? TT says that he prefers adrenoqueefs, which, those, while a little bit more tough to find, I hear are a little bit more powerful as well. So, all right. So Brian Johnson, give him credit for at least experimenting on himself. Finally, Tim Walz. Glad to see Tim Walz is back. Talk about weirdos. Of all the weirdos in public that get attention, and there's a lot of them. I mean, there is a lot of them. That's how you get attention, is you be the biggest weirdo and the most autistic and socio-psychopathic. Tim Walz is one of the biggest. A guy who's clearly never caught a football or thrown one in his life. Branded as a football coach, who is the gayest person since Kamala Harris's husband. He was on Rachel Maddow's show last night, and he assured us, he interpreted something Elon Musk did, how we should interpret it. Here he is. I'll let you guys hear it.
We spent 3 days, debating, having them trying to debate that President Musk gave a Nazi salute. Of course he did.
Of course he gave a Nazi salute. Of course he gave a Nazi salute. Says the guy. Where is it? Oh, I had it set up. I had the Tim Walz Nazi salute set up for the perfect timing there, and I accidentally exited out. I'm so retarded. Where's this Nazi? Okay, here it is. Says the guy who did this. So the only difference in what Tim Walz does here, he's tapping his heart, saying, my heart goes out to you. His hand just doesn't go straight. It's it. It doesn't go straight. Which one is the Nazi salute? It's so dumb. There's a lot of things to be worried about with Elon Musk. There's a lot of questions to ask. Is he actually a Nazi? That's not a serious one. He's not a Nazi. But they are committing hardcore to that narrative. I mean, maybe he can sue him. I doubt it. It's hard to sue for stuff like that. But, he doesn't believe that. He doesn't believe that. But it is Rachel Maddow's show, so of course you wouldn't expect anything else. But bring more Tim Walz. More Tim Walz, please. Guy's a weirdo. Love covering the weirdos. And finally, to close the show out, and this is more on a personal note and for those of you in Atlanta, Brittany Griner, who was held in Russia, she's in prison, I guess, there, for a period of months a few years ago because she had taken a marijuana vape over there. She should have known not to do that. That it was well known not to do that. But she's a 7'5" female Some people have questions, but I say, don't you dare ask those questions. Basketball player. She was playing overseas at the time. Well, Atlanta has a WNBA basketball team. So I think 75 people in like the 5 or 6 years, 10 years maybe, it's been around, have attended games. Well, they just signed Brittany Griner here in Atlanta to play on the Atlanta Dream. And I want to comment on that as a basketball fan and as someone who makes basketball videos sometimes, as referenced from a comment earlier. The worst thing to ever happen to the city of Atlanta was back in 1864, I would say, when General Sherman, during the Civil War, burned the entire city to the ground. That is until it was reported today that Atlanta's WNBA team, as I mentioned, the Dream, signed the famous or infamous Brittany Griner, a move that has no doubt condemned the 6 million plus of us who live in and around and work in and around Atlanta to a dystopian future of I-85 billboards featuring the Dream's new giant star, probably cuddling Trae Young. She's so much taller than Trae Young. How are they going to do these? Because that's what they do. It'll be the Trae Young, Brittany Griner thing. And she's like twice his size. Brittany Griner bus ads, jersey sale promotions, and true to Atlanta commercials is no man or woman's dream, Atlanta Dream. As for the theys, I cannot speak for them or they. No one will come to your city ever again, Atlanta, if you try and push Brittany Griner on us. If you're listening, don't do it. I swear. The Brittany Griner jerseys that they're going to be trying to push on us. I get angry about propaganda, but you will never see me so angry if I start seeing these things going around. That's it. I think that's it for today. That's it. That's all. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you for participating in the chats. We'll do it again soon. And stay away from Brittany Griner. Hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day.